Hello and welcome to part 3 of our Gukesh's Best Win series. And I think this is one that a lot of you are probably especially excited to see. As for here we have this game played by Gukesh against Carlsen in the 2023 Speed Chess Challenge. And this was one that, it's true that Gukesh is, let's say, more specialized in classical and rapid and blitz, and Carlsen did go on to win this match very convincingly. But I was really impressed, actually, by the way that Gukesh won this game. Because in this sort of very normal symmetrical position, you'd probably expect that Carlsen, being the stronger player, would just go on and win. But one thing you can sort of notice is about this younger generation in general, is that they basically don't have any sort of fear at all. Like, even if they're playing a high-rated player, they're still going to push for the win and try to outplay the opponent. And, as we'll see in this game, White actually succeeded with that. I guess the other point worth noting is, for the high-rated player, maybe Carlsen felt that a position like bishop e6 might get a little bit too dry with the exchanges of the bishops. Although I personally think that you actually kind of welcome this sort of imbalance as a higher-rated player, where you can sort of try and get some counterplay on the king side. If you're wondering why the arrows are currently showing, it's because it seems like every time I record a video, the laptop crashes and have to do a second run. But yeah, we press on. After rook e8, actually, the idea of rook e8 is to play bishop e6, but to take back on e6 with the rook rather than with the pawn. And I'm really impressed, actually, by the move that Gukesh played in this position, where some of you might notice also with part 1 and 2 is that one of Gukesh's superpowers is his ability to pick out the move among equal options that's going to cause the most practical problems for the opponent, which he showed here with his next move of knight to d5. Which just gives you that bit of extra flexibility with the structure, with being able to push the pawns either on the queen side or in the center. Now, if you're enjoying this video, do make sure to leave a like and also to consider subscribing. If you also tap the notification bell and set it to all, that's going to ensure that you actually get to catch on all of the vids in this series, Gukesh's Best Wins, making sure that you're not going to miss out on any of them and, yeah, find out about them as they are released by me. With that being said, I think in this position that bishop e3 maybe isn't outright a mistake, but I think it's something we're fairly happy to see, that we get this pressure now against the f7 pawn. And for this reason, maybe bishop e6 is preferable. My feeling is that maybe in that case, White was going to take and just force this imbalance of the bishop versus the knight and the two sets of doubled pawns. Now, granted, Black should still be fine after any normal move, but the imbalance does give some good scope for the better player to win here. Now, in the game, Black decided to play takes and then bishop to e6, to which White has a few different options, any normal move is going to be fine here, but c4 again sort of shows Gukesh's self-confidence and optimism, where he doesn't mind giving the b4 square to Black's knight, saying that he's going to have a decent amount of space in the center in return. Now, if Black just wants to equalize, again, you can probably just trade the bishops and just move your knight away to some square. Because the thing is, even though White has a bit more space in this position, the space advantage only really becomes significant when there are many sets of minor pieces on the board. It's a nice principle that was shared in Gelfand's old book on positional decision-making in chess, that basically the way to amplify the space advantage is to especially keep the minor pieces on the board, with the major piece that matters a little bit less in comparison. But I digress a little bit. As in the game, Carlsen tried to spice things up with the move of knight to b4, which is a pawn sacrifice. Now, to be fair, Black does get decent compensation, but only if he finds some quite precise moves here. Where the move that Black should play in bishop to d7, preparing the move c6 to trap the bishop, is of course not an obvious move by any means. It's worth pointing out that Saxon f7 is just generally going to be pretty ineffective, as White just doesn't really have a great follow-up with only a rook and a knight in the attack. So Gukesh probably was going to play c5 and just return the pawn, and make the point that his structure is going to be better here. That being said, d3 is also a little bit weak, and with bishop e6, I think Black is going to have sufficient counterplay. But you can also kind of understand why this was maybe not the most appealing option to Carlsen in the game. Instead, he played the move c6, which does allow White to keep his extra pawn alive. And from here, yeah, basically White can definitely look to create a kingside attack, and if Black puts all the pieces on the king side to defend, well, then the extra pawn on the queen side can give White some good possibilities there. Carlsen played a move of rook e7, and once again I quite like Gukesh's next move of knight to h4. There's an old saying of Kasparov that an knight on f5 is worth a pawn in terms of the initiative you get from it. And if you try to stop it with g6, then that allows the rook to invade to the f6 hole and really fix the f7 and d6 weaknesses in place as such. So this is why Carlsen played rook eb7, knight f5. As you can see from the arrows, black can't really play g6 while the h6 pawn is undefended, which is why I think a move like king h7 to prepare g6 might have been the best try for black at this point. Well, it's still better, but at least the game goes on. Whereas h5, yeah, is just a little bit of a weakening move to my mind. And Gukesh came up with a very interesting idea, where I think that the normal move would just be to play a move queen to e2 and, just not really care if they play g6 in a sense, but also still keeping the pawn and d3 defended. But Gukesh played queen f2, actually sacrificing the pawn on d3 and trying to go for the attack on the king with, takes and queen to g3 and this is sort of White's idea, trying to, bring the pieces in the attack. It looks pretty scary, but I do think that after knight b2 and knight c4, that black is going to survive here. A key resource is that rook c6 can be met with knight d2. You fork the pawn and the rook, and that's going to allow black to just about survive in this position here. But sure, White's activity with the pieces does look kind of scary, and you can understand a little bit why maybe Carlsen was a little bit bluffed out of this approach in the game. Keep in mind, of course, he's already pretty low on the clock. But yeah, g6 just kind of falls a bit short here, where maybe Carlsen's idea was to say that if White plays knight h6, that the knight is going to be kind of trapped in this position. Although even then, you can still play queen g3 and get the knight out, so it's not the best argument, admittedly. But Gukesh found an even better move in queen to g3, just keeping that pin on the pawn. Again, knight d3, rook d1 now is going to be a lot stronger with the extra weaknesses created with g6 and h5, as it were. Well, I guess the other point is also that you can even just take the pawn on c6 in the absolute worst case. And yeah, rook g6 is also crushing in this version, which is something I intuitively sensed. But yeah, as you could say at this point, all the roads lead to Rome. Well, the game went king to h7. White just defended his extra pawn. Note that black can't just take the knight, because then he will, get mated along the h file. King h6, you have rook df1, and we just invade from there, as it were. So the game went rook d7, d4. Again, very impressive to realize that you don't have to move the knight; it just can stay there and just be a pawn in black's side. Rook d2, just keeping the position, just preparing to build up the attack. The game ended knight a6, rook df2, queen to f6, and I really like the move that Gukesh played here as well. He played this move of c5, which of course is not the only winning move. If you want to play a move like knight h4 and just save your knight, that would of course be fine as well. But yeah, c5 is just very precise, where if they do take on c5, you play d5, the knight jumps into d6, and it is just absolute carnage at this point. With the rook coming into f6 and something like this, as it were, will very quickly be game over for black. Whereas in the game after g takes f5, rook f5, if you play queen g6, White's just going to play rook g5, and black just can't defend his king. Rook h6, even just queen h4, and I mean you have no way to save your queen here as black. And after rook queen g7, rook h5, yeah, given that king g8, rook g5 wins the queen, this is why Carlsen resigned in this position. So yeah, very impressive game by Gukesh, and okay, we know from how the match went that he wasn't able to sustain this form through all the games. This was sort of maybe a one-off for this match, but it still shows his his potential. When you can outplay Carlsen in this sort of way in a game is obviously very, very satisfying. And also, yeah, just a very good model, I think, for how to play these sorts of positions. For those of you who are maybe thinking of playing knight c3 in your own games, well, this can give you some ideas. If they play d6, you've got knight a4 ideas, and if they castle, you can also pin the knight, and the knight pin is a bit more effective when h6 g5 weakens their king. So you can work with ideas like this to create chances for yourself, and a6 bishop e3 they don't have the bishop e6 response that Carlsen played in the game, to end up getting a similar kind of structure to what we saw in the game in that respect. So that's a way you could potentially turn into a repertoire if you are so inclined. But yeah, comment below, what was your favorite aspect of the game or otherwise of this training video? Do let me know that. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the next videos in the series, where my aim is to kind of do one every like 2 days or so, just so if you were like busy on one day, you can still catch it the next day, as it were. But yeah, until then, have a good day, and yeah, take care.